When I was younger, sorry, I just spat a little bit.
Again.
Do you know, have you ever had that thing where your like tongue goes in a certain position and it like.
Projectile.
Yeah, I think that just happened. When I was younger, I had all these visions of what success would lead to. I kind of thought that if I got successful, that everything would kind of solve its own self. So like issues with, having friends or issues with having a family, finding a girlfriend, being jacked or whatever, anything else in between. I felt like if I could just become successful, all these things would just be solved.
I found that more often than not that I was wrong for expecting certain things and not saying that I'm, the top 1% of successful, because as we get to that, I'm sure more things will come to realization. As you sort of get older, maturity lets you see things more rationally, more logically, and you realize that some of the expectations are what you see in movies are completely false, or at least it's a very small glimpse of a large picture. And that's the glamour part of it that people want you to see. I'm sure people see a lot on Instagram. That is 100%. Such a small part of things. Yeah. So for example, in the Rocky scene where there's always a fight where, you can almost write the script out before watching the movie. Something happens. He's motivated to fight this person and he's
always the underdog as well.
Yes. He's being knocked out first before he wins later, right? You expect the first fight to be a loss. But in the movie, that loss goes on for maybe 5 minutes. And you as a viewer sort of know that's going to be the loss that leads up to the ultimate success, because that's what the Rocky movie is about. It's about success. But in real life, when you're being knocked out, it feels like 2 years. But you don't know at the start of that it's going to go on for 2 years. So your whole life is just failure at that point. It's not like this is a part of success. I'm just a failure at this point. But it's only after that you realize, it kind of was what I expected, but just way different.
Give me the vision of the expectation of what you had when you achieved success. What was expected for you?
Well, the first thing was I thought I didn't grow up with many friends. So the first thing that I thought was by becoming successful, I would gain a group of successful friends very quickly.
Right. Got ya.
That wasn't the case.
So why did you think that was going to just get solved by that?
I think it led to when I was younger, you sort of wanted to be a part of the cool kids, and the cool kids always have, the nicest things, nicest clothes, and go to the nicest parties and stuff. And growing up being a little bit of an outcast, I wouldn't say that fitting in was like a motivation for me to become successful. If anything, I think I over time I've developed a less of need in that, because I didn't have too much of that. But I did think that perhaps when I get older, I'll be successful and I have all these friends. But turns out it's quite the opposite. I'm pretty sure I lost all of my friends.
Yeah, right.
On the way to trying to chase success.
Yeah. I get that. I wouldn't say that you need to have no friends to be successful, if that makes sense. Like ideally, you'll be able to hang on to a lot of people who can support you and aren't trying to drag you down or keep you kind of where you want to leave from. And they're, maybe you want to grow and maybe they're not that interested and you just separate naturally, just naturally happens. It's like the lonely chapter that Chris Williamson always talks about. To get to where you are, to get to where you want to be, usually requires some sort of journey of loneliness. Like you're going to have to cut off some friends, or there's going to be a period of time where you just don't really see anyone. But you have to have the expectation that maybe that will be the case. And then even then when you get successful, you might also find that there's still less people up there that are, familiar to you or can kind of support you along the journey at that stage. How do you kind of handle that? Like, I know for you, maybe it wasn't as much of an issue because maybe when you were younger, you weren't as reliant on it. But there's probably a lot of people out there that find that probably the biggest stopping point to them going from A to B.
Not being able to fit in with their friends or losing connection with their friends.
Just being in that kind of lonely zone, being in that lonely chapter. Because like you said, it's like the Rocky scene. It might seem like it will only last 5 minutes, but maybe it will be a year and a half, 2 year endeavor. And then you're still at that stage, not certain. You're going to kind of find your tribe, find your group.
Okay, so I think first is defining success, right? I don't think you mentioned before financial success is obviously one point. I think I define success as the distance that you travel from where you started. That's my definition of it.
Okay.
Right? And in your road, however you define it. So if I'm going to give an extreme example. Let's just say your dad is Bill Gates and you're born with a lot of financial success. So for you to achieve financial success, for Bill Gates' son to say that I want to be a millionaire is probably not a good well, he won't be as successful as somebody that started with
I got you.
nothing, right? So it's that distance. I say this because, so if you're defining a success as literally moving from where you were born into a different place, it literally means that you live in an environment behind. If you look at the statistics of the amount of people that will become successful, if we're just going to use financial metrics as one, but you could use any metrics, sports performance in business, anything, but let's just say financial metrics, you can literally Google what the top 10% earner is, for example, in your country or in your region. If your goal is to make that kind of money, means that you have to make more than 90% of the people in the country. And if you're born in an average environment, grew up in that environment, means that you're going to be making more money than 90% of your friends. And you're probably going to have higher expectations of yourself than 90% of your friends. And you probably have to have higher standards. So what they think is good probably aren't going to be good enough for you anymore. So as you sort of grow, what you realize is when you're hanging out around with the same friends, not only at times they can hold you back because your reference group, that big research Harvard done where you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with.
Yep.
So in a way that they hold you back. But even when you move up, they don't necessarily want to move up with you. But it's very difficult for them to tell you, hey, Fraser, I don't want to move with you because you're too successful for me. No one's going to have the awareness to say that. At least if they had the awareness.
It's like not even that though. I feel like it's a lot of the time it's people leaving kind of toxic kind of environments where they're going out every weekend, maybe doing drugs, maybe drinking. And then you just go, I'm like trying to get away from this shit. And then, so if you're trying to do something or you just want to work on the weekend or you want to build something or you want to start a business, the friends aren't going to just stop drinking and doing all the shit. So you just naturally can't see them because a lot of the time you see them, they're just drinking and doing drugs or something like that. So how are you going to see them? All of a sudden you're kind of alone, I suppose.
That's
so
exactly,
I don't even think like it's the ostracization from, oh my God, they're so successful or I'm way more successful or whatever. It's just literally like I can't get to where I want to go if I do all the shit that they're doing.
So my goal on that example is you want to earn in the top 10% of the population.
Yeah.
Chances are they don't want this because definition says only 10% of the people want it or at least gets it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So they are probably going to be doing what the normal thing is to do in that reference group. So I think understanding that makes it a lot easier already is to say that you're kind of.
So you're set to be an exception.
Yeah.
You're ready for it. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're literally the definition of average. If you're the definition of average, how can you be exceptional at everything? So if you have 10 friends and if you want to be the top 10% in anything, it means that you have to be different to the 9 of them.
You could say all that. I don't think it makes it any easier though.
No. How I would, well, at the time, it doesn't, you sort of don't see this. But as you sort of grow and keep walking in this sort of dark path, you start to find other people. You realize that, oh, there are other people that want what I want. And I think with social media and internet being what it is now, it's a lot easier to find relatability, whether it be on podcasts or friends somewhere else.
Yep.
But still you have to understand that is a minority of, you can't have 90% of the people relate to you. And relatability is a big part of friendship, I feel like. Not being able to share the same interests or how you spend your time sort of limits your ability to be friends with people. And especially in that beginning where you don't have people that want what you want. I think it does get easier as you go on because you find more similar-minded people, but you have to accept that is a cost of being the top 10% at something. It means that you have to leave some people behind.
Achieving success, and we're just talking financially because it's the most simple thing, and I think a lot of people aim to be financially successful. Success will lead to X. So when I get financially successful or whatever, own a successful business, it will lead to X. I feel like a few of the things that I would have thought is like happiness. I will be more happy. I suppose, is like one of the X's that I would have put there. I feel like life would have been easier as well. That's something I had expectations on that I don't think are entirely true. I think maybe the more successful you get, biggie smalls or whatever, more money, more problems kind of thing. Not saying that you have like more problems, but it's more the problems become different problems. Like life doesn't necessarily become as straightforward and smooth, especially if you're like kind of running a business and actively running a business. It's got to be challenge after challenge after challenge. Not saying that it's necessarily like really bad and like poor me, but it's more like you wake up and you've got hard things to do, but they might be exciting. Does that relate to you in any way? Do you think that you had expectations of happiness when you achieved success?
100%. I thought that me being in the gym business, starting up with, making losses for the first 4 or 5 years, I remember once we have 500 customers, once we have 500 members, my life would just be perfect. And that means I can do all that I want and just train in the gym every day and not have to worry about stuff. I somehow just thinking that the 500 members will just stay forever. Oh, and nothing would go up. So the same money that you make and just buy the same things all the time. And the employees that work for you will just work for you forever. So I did envision all of these things. I probably just didn't think of it.
And then the employees and stuff like, oh, they'll just stick around. They'll be totally fine to just stay where they are and we keep running and doing all that stuff. Yeah.
There's never going to be a thing called COVID.
No, not COVID. And
100% relate to this. But then what happens is, for me, I got to that point and realized this, I did get there, but this is, I got here, but it doesn't look like, it's not enough, Wayne. This isn't what I imagined. I didn't imagine when I get here, rent will just be up. Okay, then that probably the 500 is the right number. Let me get to 1,000. Maybe that'll fix it.
Yeah.
Then I walked to 1,000. Then I realized, oh, no, everything else moves along with it. So you start to realize that there is always a cost to things. It just looks different.
It makes your life a little bit more convenient, just achieving that, but not necessarily happier or easier. There's different kind of, another level, another devil is, I believe, the saying. So I wouldn't imagine that people that achieve success, you shouldn't be diving into it with the expectation that it's going to solve all your problems. You're probably going to get there and have the exact same problems if you had like those existing problems to begin with. So it's a work in progress, I think. And then happiness is the process along the way. Like that's where you find your happiness. And if you're waiting to achieve something, like you said, 500 or 1,000, if you get there and then you go, well, why am I not just happy now? Like what the hell? Because it was the process, the whole process. And it's a continuing process that you need to unveil and unlayer to achieve that kind of happiness and then success.
It's probably deeper than happiness, I'd say. I think we generalize that as a term. It's fine to call it happiness. But better might be fulfillment or purpose.
I think fulfillment's a much better one, yeah.
You don't give up in something. You power through and the outcome becomes great. The amount of confidence, fulfillment that I went through this, I actually achieved something I didn't believe that I was going to be able to do. That kind of fulfillment, I think is the reward, the happiness of the cost that I paid in those years. But I think that's what success is, isn't it? It's you're going for these big mountains, but then the climb is just so much more difficult. When you get to the top, the view is so much better, but then you have more risk of falling off and starting up again. Is this
true?
You'll have the best moments and the lowest of lows.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably wouldn't call it easier. It's definitely harder at times. But yeah, you can use the word convenience, but there's always a cost.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. For me, this is probably the biggest mistake I made, I reckon, in the whole tenure of running a business and creating content and achieving some sort of semblance of success. I reckon I had just a very hard time getting other people to help and get the work and do some work purely because I felt like I like created this and I didn't want to give anyone else like a chance to fuck it up, if that makes sense. Like for me, it was purely like, okay, I know if I do it, it's going to get done well. I'm not going to have to worry about, is someone else going to do it well? Are they going to do it bad? Are they going to blah, 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 blah? And thus probably took on too much and went fast. However, if I had some more people on the bus or whatever that could help out, I reckon would have been able to go a lot further. So for me, I reckon that's one of the biggest mistakes. And I had the expectation, I suppose, of thinking like, no one's going to help me do anything. I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm going to get in here. I'm going to just do the work. Totally fine. I'll be a workhorse. I'll work morning to night. And yeah, you can achieve some success. But I don't think you get there with nearly as much satisfaction, nor do you get there with nearly as much kind of fuel for growth.
This was one of my biggest ones. Before, it was actually my friend, one of my good friends that reminded me of this. And that's one thing that he realized that changed the most about me. Because he sat in my office in my second gym. And at that time, I think it was 2019, when I just opened my second gym. And I think our revenue were first time in the 7 figures. And I wasn't a capable 7-figure business person at the time yet.
Right, okay.
So I was trying to do everything myself. It was Wayne and 30 helpers. I had managers. I just didn't let them manage anything.
Oh, yeah.
So my friend came in with something, had a question. And he just remembered me saying, Wayne, you literally said to me that you have to do everything. You can't trust anybody else in business. And he sort of walked away remembering that conversation. And a few years later, he didn't have a conversation with me. Wayne, do you remember what you said to me? Like a few years ago, you said you had to do everything yourself. I think it's a necessary chapter to go through though, because what I learned through that is I'm just a man. As in that my abilities are limited. There's only so much I can do. So, and then if you don't use other people's abilities, you will just be limited by whatever your ability is. And sure, you can increase your capacity and your ceilings a little bit higher, but it's always going to be that as a ceiling. But in another way, that you realize that for us to go together and get there, I must also help them achieve their goals. Wouldn't it be better if our goals were the same? Let's try and that's what leadership is to create a goal that's big enough to fit everyone else's goals in there. And then, yes, that's when I fully understood the term. If you want to go far, go together.
I suppose for me, I could have done everything. Like you couldn't have done what you did without at least 1 or 2 employees, right? But for me, I did do everything basically. So obviously you can't just be like, I'm going to do it all myself. But in terms of that mindset shift between I need more hands on deck basically. Like why is that so important? Why can't you just do everything?
Well, I think for you, your ceiling was just higher because you're in the content game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, digital
and I'm sure you'll eventually reach that limit. There is going to, because there's only 24 hours in a day, you're not going to get more off.
Yep.
But for me, that limit was a lot lower because I had I have physical locations that I can't be at 2 places at once.
Yeah.
So my realization was literally that I was running 2 businesses at that time. Well, the same business with 2 locations, but I was making the same money, if not less, with a lot more risk. And life was very nerve-wracking at the time because let's just say I was making about $100,000 at the time. But previously my revenue, there was probably 20% of my revenue. But with that doubling up, it's now less than 10% of my revenue. I'm still making the same amount, but if things go wrong, I now have no space to save both locations when I realized that a lot of things were like done right purely because I was there. And that definitely had to stop. This is where the initial thought of acknowledging that you can't do everything yourself. Only when you acknowledge this, you could start to implement or at least learn, read books on how to lead, how to manage.
Yeah. So in terms of you, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were running the business and kind of letting it run you at the same time. Like you had to be at the helm. If you weren't at the helm, things were going wrong. So you had to step back and go, how do I become like a manager of people? How do I help people, like the people on the team, get better so that they can then run it? And you have to have trust in that. Like, do you have to just train them? Do you have to dedicate yourself to being like, all right, I'm going to work on the people in the team and make sure they can grow so I can trust them? Or do you just kind of go headfirst, blind trust, and just hope it work out?
No. So to give context of that, I was. The business was definitely running me. And I just remember at the time, my girlfriend at the time just moved in and she was trying to, we'd never had dinner together, weekends, weekdays. I'd get home at 2 a.m. And then food would just be on the table. And it was a terrible life. It wasn't a good life. And it took a lot of my passion away from this because this isn't what I signed up for. I didn't imagine it being like this. I really enjoyed owning one gym and running one gym. It felt great. But this is no longer fun. I felt like I was being run down. So there were so many parts to this, but the biggest thing, you're right, is to be able to trust other people to do this. Essentially, you can't just trust them to do it. You have to also make this their dream and their vision. If you just bluntly trust someone to do it, I've been bitten before. So, and I don't think people a lot of the times come out to bite you on purpose. But when their goals aren't the same as yours, the reason I was in that position in the first place was a manager that I had dedicated for that new gym to open up sort of quit on me 4 weeks before it opened. And that was my inability to tie my goal to his. So I didn't paint a right picture of what's in it for you to want to sort of sacrifice for this, to want to work for me instead of working for somebody else. So I think that's the first question to answer. Is your employees or your key employees, the people that you want to work with, what's in it for them? They're not going to work for you. They're only going to work for their dream. And if you want to work together, the dream has to sort of be
inclusive.
Be both of your dreams. And only after that, you can start to trust. Obviously, there's methods, but you don't just let people do everything on their own. There is a method of progress and training to get that involved, but you can't even think about it. The first thing I would say is get that vision aligned before you can trust anybody with something that and expect them to do as good of a job as you.
Like for me, I would have just banged immediately at some stage, hired an editor and just bit the bullet and just kind of like grew with them and maybe just shopped around, found a good editor at some stage. That would have been like so helpful, so damn helpful. Like as soon as I was making any amount of money, I would have been like, I'll be happy to just go back to making zero money, if that makes sense. And then I'll give the money to the editor so that I can grow it and then I can film more content and then I can kind of go for a longer period of time. Like that's one thing I would have done. So I suppose just don't be shy to get more people on and have the trust and forego a little bit of control as well as financial incentive. I feel like when you do incorporate more people, obviously maybe there's less financial upside in the short term, but probably a lot more financial upside in the long term. That's where I would come at it anyway. That's learning from my own mistakes.
So in your case, right, so the first thing that I would have asked is, I see your case is a little bit different because you're in the content game. But for example, I would ask this editor, what is you just doing the job for me for a mediocre wage isn't good enough for me to trust you 100%. Now, you've got to be good enough for the job. Like I've got to look at your portfolio. You have to be capable enough to do it.
Yeah.
But just because you have that capability, it doesn't mean that I think it's enough to trust this person 100%. Not their character, but if their only capacity is to take, say, 10 clients and then you're the 10th one and then a better one comes along, wouldn't they just swap you out for somebody else? Or at least the quality will drop, right? So I would have the conversation on, all right, what do you see that you want out of this? And this doesn't just stay to be content creators or employees. I do negotiations for our locations, our lease agreements, all like this. The other person has to win. So any kind of partnership, whether it be an employee basis partnership or freelancer or any business deal, a bad deal won't last. So I always go in thinking, I'm going to be honest, this is what I want out of this. And if it's something like an editor, I would say, if you want the exposure of being the best editor in the game and editing for Fraser Wilson and I'd be able to give you the right spotlight, what would that look like for you? So so that would be a part of my remuneration to them. So I would make sure that there is 100% alignment in what they define as success to my goals. Same thing, I'll do that with negotiation with lease. We won a lot of locations because I'm simply a bit more catering towards the landlords or towards the real estate agent.
What their goals are, yeah.
What their goals are. So the most recent location, I simply ask them. I've actually taken the location over from a much global competitor, I think, or at least a nationwide competitor. And the first question was, I asked is, why are we talking? Because they came to me asking me that, when we want to talk to you because there's another guy that we're talking to, another gym that we're talking to. They're paying a little bit more money, but we want to have this conversation to see if we can work something out. My first question is, why are you here? If they're paying you more money, tell me what is it that you are here so I know what they're not doing. Oh, they're getting lawyers to speak to us. They're playing hardball. So I said, okay, so money isn't everything is what you're telling me. He goes, you're right. The landlord is an older fella and they value longevity and peace of mind more than just a little bit more rent every year. Got ya. So I asked him, would you value, a 10-year longer lease over $10,000 more rent every year. It's absolutely. Okay, so then I had my advantage. I knew how I could work with them. So at the end of the deal, they got what they wanted and I got what I wanted. So what I mean is that sort of applies from an editor perspective, employee perspective, business partner perspective.
Yep.
It goes everywhere. So only when that's aligned, you can start to trust them with the task.
So I feel like negotiation comes into it 100% and win-win, and finding how to provide the value for the other party as well, so they can be inspired to commit and actually do the work. Even if it's simple, that's a good example though. Even with the lease agreement, just because it's you found out what the other person wants, and all of a sudden, okay, they're down to play ball. But you need them to play ball, and you need to know how to kind of make them worth it for them to play ball. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. Yeah, I wish I knew that back in the day. Should have told me.
In a way, I think everyone's a customer.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I always look at from my perspective that I find, just compared to some other people that aren't thinking like this. I always think that somebody's a customer. Just because you're a business partner doesn't mean that we play hardball to each other.
Yeah.
You have to win. So you automatically go on this mind of how do I make people win? So even before this podcast, we talk about how do we make the audience win? Everybody sort of have to have a win out of this.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't have thought about it that way. That's very interesting. Yeah. So if you are in the negotiation stage, or you are looking to grow, or you're looking to add some people, get a little bit better at negotiating as well. That's the way. And one way to do that is the win-win strategy. And
the funny thing I'll add, we can finish this point on this one, is that when you start to ask about their goals, what you'll find is they start to get interested in yours. They start going, wait, what can I do for you?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's what ended up happening with that lease agreement. I said, they're giving you a 7 years. What about a 10-year? You know what? I'll make that a 14-year. And then they said, okay, well, how do we win you over?
Yeah, right.
Lease amount is important to me.
Yeah,
I'm a small business and I don't have the margins of the big guys. So I'd appreciate if you give us a discount on the actual figures. And they go, okay, let me talk to the landlord. So now they know they can get me a win, and we sign a deal at the end of it. So it's because they could see that I genuinely wanted them to win. This is an ongoing relationship.
Yep.
So that applies for, I think, more than just in this case, like every 100%. Situation.
Common trope for success, financial success at the very least, is you want to start trying to find ways to make passive income. Passive income, passive. You'll hear it all bloody anywhere, right? You start getting interested in finances, the first thing anyone's going to tell you is passive income. You want to be making money while you sleep. If you got to work for your money, you're wasting your bloody time. I don't agree with this. I think passive income's a little bit, especially when you're young, when you're a young adult. If you're 20, 18, 16, whatever, even 25, if you're under 30, even if you're over 30, if you have no bloody money, how are you going to make passive income? I think the best thing you could do is just find ways to actively make money, whether that's starting a business, whether that's starting up some content, whether it's starting up, an online business, whatever it is, just find a way to actively increase your money, whether it's just getting a larger salary. You're going to earn more money from that than trying to find ways to make passive income. What the hell is passive income?
I was guilty of this in the beginning, and I look back at this now and think how stupid it is. I was in the same boat because I did network marketing. So most people see that as, I don't know, you call it multi-level marketing, ML, like, I don't want to name the companies, but, like you sort of get your friend to buy something, they get their friend to buy something. It's a distribution model.
Herbalife.
Yes. You just named the company. Okay. So that's an example of one, right? So that's not the company I was doing, but that's a good example.
Got ya.
But the way they were selling the business to young kids was passive income. So they say that, hey, so-and-so can make X amount of dollars per hour in his sleep because somebody else is selling that to their customers. That is points is going up to them. Without sort of thinking much, without understanding money and economy, as a young kid, of course, you're going to be sort of attracted to that because you're making money out of laziness, right? You think that you can make money from doing nothing. How that is wrong is that money doesn't really care whether you make it as passive or not. It only comes when you add value to other people.
Yeah.
So whether you make money passively or not passively, the reason is the same. It's because you added value to somebody else, right? So what you're saying is, I want to be able to add value to people when I'm sleeping. Well, if that's the case, I think the first thing to do is to add value to people while you're awake, because you're awake for longer hours than you're actually.
Start there, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
before you sleep. Sleep 8 hours. You're awake for 16.
Yeah, you can't do anything when you're asleep either.
Yes, it's a concept of that.
So
people need to know how to make money when they're awake first, way before they know how to do it while they're asleep.
Yeah. I will say though, because I think when people hear passive income, like the goal is to create passive income while you're awake, but then forget about it. Like then it's just created, which doesn't exist. You can't just create passive income and it's eternally paying you money.
Yes.
It doesn't exist.
I can't think of, the only thing I can think of that makes you true passive income is probably just examples that you mentioned, like money in the bank, earning interest.
Savings account, yeah, sure. But if you
buy a
have
house.
$100 million in there, okay,
Yeah.
you're probably going to earn some sort of interest that could support your livelihood.
Correct. But most people don't have $100 million.
No.
And most people aren't born with 100 or anyone near that to begin with. They probably won't be listening to the podcast if they are. But let's just say that let's just say real estate, for example. People think that earning rent is passive income. It's not.
Nah.
It's not fully passive.
No.
You have to manage property. You first have to buy the property and you have to probably pay an agent to manage the property.
Yep.
If not, you do it yourself. That's work. It's just the type of work that you're doing.
Yep.
So I think the reason why you get paid from real estate is not because it creates passive income, because you're providing potential housing for a tenant. So it's a value that you provided. So I think the way to look at this is how to get better at providing value at other people. And also another reason why you would make passive income when you're people like Warren Buffett and Tony Robbins and these success figures is they've already maxed out their earning potential while they're awake. They got nothing else left.
Yeah.
And that's one reason. And the second reason is insurance. In a way that after you buy a car, for example, you pay for an insurance to protect your asset. But no one got rich from multiple streams of income. Everyone got rich because they're really good at one thing. But when they get to that certain capacity where that one thing's making them a lot of money, therefore it's a big asset, I better protect this one thing just in case another lockdown happens that my industry can't operate. Let me put that in an uncorrelated industry. But that's only when you have something, you've achieved something. Most people look at that way before they have even one thing they're good at. And then they go on social media to tell people that, yeah, you should be making passive income. So then what happens is you get a lot of people with a bunch of side hustles that's making like $1 from everything when you could just put that in one and then make a killing first. So an example of this, right, is somebody made this example. I thought it was brilliant. Try and count to 10 as quickly as possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right? Or ABCD. Try to do that as quickly as possible. Now versus trying to do 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D.
Damn.
That's what you're doing when you're doing
Yeah.
multiple focuses.
Sort of.
Right? You're trying to do two
You
things
are a little bit. You're right.
or multiple things at once.
Yeah.
You most times, even if you are going to do 1 to 10, then A to Z, you do it one at a time
Yeah.
to allocate enough resources, your in this case, brain capacity towards it. So,
Before we dive on that, though,
Yes.
just with the multiple streams, just on the passive income thing, the only thing I'd say like is passive income is I think it's good what you're saying. I think when you're young, you need to focus in on one thing because that one thing has the largest chance to create some sort of passive income. Not saying that it's truly passive, but if you do that, you will earn money while you sleep. So these are things like owning a business. These are things like starting up some sort of passion project. I don't know, YouTube, whatever. For example, if I start, YouTube pays me money no matter what time of the day it is because it's constantly doing things. Same with the business. Your business is constantly active, right? So you don't have to necessarily be active. You could be asleep, but it's still earning money. So you need to funnel your vision, a tunnel vision on one thing to grow it to the point where it can actually sustain and pay you some money when you sleep. So that's the only form of passive income that might make any sense. But then above that, once you've done that, like you were mentioning, you can then go onto multiple streams, right? But if you do that in the beginning, this is just not very effective, is it? Yeah.
sorry, I've actually jumped to
Yeah, I know.
multiple streams.
No,
But
good. I
backing
was just
on
putting
that-
a button on the passive one.
Yeah, backing on that passive one. Yeah, so the point that you made, for example, you can say that, Wayne's built a business now to a point that he's on a podcast and he's making money on the podcast.
Yeah.
You can look at however way you want. But the thing is, I'm not though, because the reason why I'm being paid right now is the work that I've done 2 years ago for the business. And the reason why I'm doing this podcast now is to grow our branding so that we can continue to get paid in 2-3 years to come.
Yep.
So it's not that I'm making passive income. It's just the work was done somewhere. The value was created somewhere else. I don't think passive income is a term, but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean passive value. You have to be always doing something to add value to people.
That's a phenomenal way to put it. Is your net? You should never aim to make any amount of like active or passive income. You should just focus on creating active value, because if you do that, you'll, it's the whole thing. If you do more than what you're paid to do, you'll get at some stage paid more than what you do. Like you'll get more money. So eventually you just need to actively, consistently provide value to people and find more ways to provide value to people. Yeah. And then at some stage you'll be paid over the course of the day, night, year, month, blah, 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 so on and so forth.
The funny thing is that I hear someone say this and I can't agree more with it. It's people that do things for passive income will never achieve it, because with that kind of thinking, your energy just won't attract passive income. People only make your understanding of passive income when they focus on the value that they can bring to people. They've brought so much value to people that they're willing to pay the guy when he's asleep. So that's sort of what you have to focus on. And if you're going for that passive income, I personally never achieved any kind of passive income chasing it. You're looking at the wrong question.
I don't even know how you could. Like, what do you define as passive income? Like,
I think what they mean, most people might just think that I want to be able to make money without working for it.
Yeah, but what is that?
That's probably what it is, but that's laziness. Should you though? Well, my question is, should you?
It's also probably not fulfilling.
No.
If you can find a way, like you set up some sort of digital AI funnel system that creates a website for you and then funnels people into a sales funnel or something. You did a little bit, but maybe you could forget about it for 3 months and it's making you some money. I don't know.
I guess.
But is that fulfilling?
Yeah, so that's the question. But I guess you can look at it as, some people just call it passive. It means that I'm doing a bunch of the work beforehand to get paid continuously afterwards. But I just don't think that people that do it, even if they achieve passive income, I think we're being a bit flirting with the definition of it now. Passive income is probably something that most people talk about and probably that exists in most people's minds. But what we're saying is you can't aim for it. You can't just expect to be paid for nothing.
Nah.
It has to be of value. If you're getting paid passive income, you have to be adding passive value to people all the time, whatever that is that you're going to do. So the goal should be creating that, not generating passive income.
Suppose we together created some sort of, it's not passive, it's always active to some degree, but the gym's always open and anyone can go at any point in time. So I suppose there's value at all times of the day, which is quite interesting because I think YouTube and content works the same way.
Well, no, because somebody else
you could always watch it. Yes. Mine's worldwide, so it's like it's 12 p.m. somewhere.
Well, I can argue that somewhere. I can argue that only works when the platform is there, and the platform is there because people are working on the platform. People are working on the platform because people like you creating content on the platform.
Yeah.
So that there's always work being done. It's just that you are not being paid by the hour. You're being paid by the work, and sort of is delayed.
Just more meaning like the industries that we come from are always creating value to someone, because someone could go to the gym at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m, blah, blah, blah. They could go at 9 a.m. in the morning.
I'll tell you what that is though. That's not passive income.
No, it's not passive income.
That's business.
Yeah.
So how you define this is actually quoting Robert Kiyosaki on his scale of, on the left side, you're employee or self-employed.
Yep.
Now, most people mistaken self-employed as a business owner. They're different things. So I can be a hairdresser, that I can own a hairdressing business. You're still self-employed. It doesn't mean you're a business owner because you can't make money while you have to cut the hair. But when you own the salon and you can hire other people, so what you're doing is you figured out a way to create value to people while you are not doing the work yourself. So that's the difference between bridging of self-employed versus business. So what we've done is simply business. We created value on something that we've done beforehand or that we don't have to actively do. But our work is now not delivering the actual service, but perhaps managing it and perhaps making the right decisions for it.
You know what's funny about that is that is the case. I agree with that. That in order to, let's put an example, like you could go on a holiday for a month and your business will still be operating. However, I feel like when you're on that holiday, because I was the same, you'd probably still be working. You'd be on your phone, you'd be checking, you'd be calling managers and stuff. So you've created that ability to do that, but you still love what you do. So you do it anyway. Which is funny.
Yeah.
So it's never really passive. Like if you create a kind of work environment that you like, you don't want it to be passive.
Yes.
You want to be actively doing it.
So I guess the point we're trying to explain to people is that I know we're talking about passive income, right? And we've sort of explained it that you can't really achieve passive income, at least thinking about the income side of it, people will probably still watch and be like, yes, you can create passive income. But then we're going back around and saying that, look, you can't do it while thinking about it. No one creates passive income with the goal of, hey, let me think about how I can create passive income today.
Yeah.
You have to think about how I can create something that adds value to people that pays you. So the example that you just gave, you're right, because the only reason why we've done anything close to passive income is because that's what we were aiming for. We created value and we happen to have created something that can work while we're not actively working. But then you work anyway because you understand it's the work that you did 10 years ago that got you here. So why would you take advantage of that and sort of just let it die off? You'd want to build more. So it's the thinking and the action that got us here in the first place. It's this paradoxical thing.
Yeah. I feel like when you grow a business, it's just about creating more ability to create active value. Like when you hire an employee, you're just getting an extra 10 hours of work power and value providing from someone. Like that's it. And then you continue to grow. Like that is it in a nutshell. I suppose for me, like content, just putting out another video is creating another chance for someone to be able to get helped over and over and over again. And then there's just like a constant kind of growing system, which is quite nice. So yeah, focus on creating more activity in your actual day-to-day life. And then I'm sure at some stage, if you do well enough, you'll get paid while you sleep. You'll have some semblance of passive income, but I would never shoot for it. On that, I suppose once you achieve some sort of financial success, a lot of people start to think multiple streams. We need $100 coming from here, $200 coming from here. Look, I've got 7 streams of income, which is, I don't know. I'm contrarian in this because I reckon if you are an employee and you've got literally one sole stream of income, maybe it's best that you think about how to create another one. So that could just be from safe investments where you achieve some sort of dividend every quarter or whatever. That's a good idea because you're kind of capped. But if you're in a business, just put the money back in the business until you're at a stage where you go, I think like you were using as an example, use it as insurance against the business. So now you've got things elsewhere, like maybe it's real estate, maybe it's investments. Like that's a good idea. But if you're in the beginning, I reckon multiple streams of income is probably the worst thing you could shoot for. You're not going to get as much out of it. It's like you're digging for a diamond in like 5 different holes and you're just hoping you'll find one, even though it's like 100 meters underground.
Yep. That's something like, I wouldn't say it's a pet peeve because I do see the value of side hustles when the goal is to make the side hustle the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm the all or nothing type of guy and I built a business, with a all or nothing sort of mentality and I'm still going to pursue this up until a certain point. And even if I was to find multiple streams of income, and that is to protect this one, it's still with that, plan A approach. But yes, I'll say it again, just, because I jumped the gun before, but no one got rich from multiple streams of income. I mean, even your Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and people like this. I mean, Elon Musk is probably notorious. He's probably the closest one to it. But the guy's a genius for one. That's 1 out of 7 billion. And 2, people forget about the time where he's focusing just on PayPal or just on Tesla and just on getting people to the moon.
Yeah.
But if you take him out of the equation, I mean, how could people like, Jeff Bezos and Jensen Huang and Steve Jobs have the ability to do anything else when they're so focused on making the one thing really great? I'm sure they have other investments, but that's investment not to make money. That investment there is to protect their industry so that, I have an iPod to supplement the iPhone so that in case there's something that happens with the phone industry, we've got something else to supplement it and also they actually help each other. So I would look at it as I would always make real estate investment because my real estate investment saved the business during our lockdown period. So even that, it's still, I've looked at it as an insurance for the plan A. I just don't know personally anybody that made, let's just forget the term make money. That got really good at something, doing everything at once. I mean, you can.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, master of none. Yeah. And then people pay you for being a master at something. So I guess you can do a side hustle because you have to at times. Like people practically can't just, quit the job and just do the thing they love or just, this is my job for now. I haven't got my dream job yet. But I think it's right to have that side hustle to look for that dream job or whatever that might, or build that dream business. But as soon as you get to a point where you can sort of put 2 feet in the same boat, that's where it's at. And then once you get to a point where maybe put a number in your head and then you're somewhat successful in that industry, you can then think about diversifying.
But even then, I think it should make sense. Like if you were in the gym industry and all of a sudden you want to sell, I don't know, spades to dig, garden supplies. Then it's like, what's the bloody correlation? At least when you do, you're jumping from one expertise to another. I think, in the initial ones, you could even just look at it from skill building or whatever. I think when you've said this before, like you could take your team and probably run a hotel or something like that, just because the team's so good and you guys are good at what you do.
Yeah.
But when you're someone just starting up, like you don't have the expertise, you don't have the skills yet. So it's just about dialing in on one thing to get as good. What is it? 10,000 hours is what they say in order to achieve some sort of expertise. And I think you get incentivized from the disparity between what's normal and where you are. So the higher the disparity between you and what's normal, what's average in terms of your skill set or your knowledge or your expertise in one certain thing, the more you'll be incentivized. It's not about I'm like good here. So if you're just a little bit better at a lot of things, you're only going to get incentivized for how much better you are at those specific things.
Yeah.
Not cumulative.
Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah, you try to catch 3 rabbits, you get none.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, stay focused. Last thing is I expect success to last forever. What do you reckon?
Yep. I would even, I guess, add to that is even bad times won't last forever.
Yeah, so nothing really lasts forever. No, when it's going good, it's probably going to have some sort of speed bump. When it's going bad, same applies. I wouldn't be worried about it. There's going to be sunshine at the end of that the end of that rainy day.
So I tell my team that was my lesson during probably the lockdown years, during those pandemic years. This too shall end. Because during that period, I've learned that my good years sort of ended. We're going through a tough period. But then when that ended, I realized, this too shall end. So it's more so understanding that success or whatever it is that you're chasing is not the destination that's fun. Like getting stuff, having stuff isn't fun, but getting it is fun. And then you'll set the next goal and you get there is who you become and who you meet and what you encounter during that, what you discover in the process. So I understand that the any success that we'll achieve now is probably due to some stuff that I've done 2 years ago. And if we just sit on our ass and do nothing now, it will end. So if you want this to continue, you must constantly be proactively creating the next thing. And also don't expect things to always go well. If it goes bad, I tell myself this too shall end. Yeah. So that's definitely something I've learned.
Yeah, it's not getting caught up too much in the highs and too much in the lows. I think it's just like you need a very mellow, I think this is even just in sports as well for like sports stars or whatever. Like you need to be mellow. If you get too caught up in like your success or too caught up in when it's going bad, you just need to be able to like kind of smooth ride through it all. Just be like, this isn't that great. Okay, this, let's enjoy this, but also let's not take it too seriously because if we get caught up in how good things are going, then when things go a little bit sour, all of a sudden you're not ready for it.
I'm really a big victim to this. I feel like you'll probably be better at this than me because I tend to have a bigger ego, at least in my younger days. So then what happened is you celebrate your wins a lot. You get high on your own supply in Gary Vee's words. And there's nothing wrong with doing that because you're stacking the wins. But you got to understand that when it drops by 20%, your emotions are going to drop by 20% with it. It's good, I guess, because you learn to be resilient through it. But as I've aged, I've just learned to be humble. When things are going well, just chill out, look back and see what is making this go well. Let's see if we can make this go longer. And also when things go bad, like that Rocky cutscene that we're talking about, the fight scene goes for 5 minutes, but in real life, it goes for 2 years. Understand that it's okay. It's, what is it? The nights are darkest before the dawn. It'll come back up right through it. And eventually, I think everything that bad has turned out better than I thought it was going to be.
100%, yeah. Yeah, nothing's ever as bad as it seems.
No.
And I think if you're not coming at it, like you said, it's good to be humble and just, if you're coming at it from what we were talking about before, just creating active value, like your goals to benefit society and create impact, lasting impact, then you're not that caught up in your success or your failures. If you're trying to actually accomplish something like that, you just go like, all right, today is another day to achieve some sort of impact on humanity. Sweet. Okay. If it's not going off 3 months, or whatever, it's fine. I'm still trying to have an impact. At some stage it will be good and then blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you get caught up in like who you are, I think maybe that can be dangerous.
Yes. Yeah, I've definitely been a victim of that. Yeah, it's just, I think it doesn't matter what we say. People are going to, when things are going well, it's hard not to celebrate it. And when things are going bad, it's hard not to be caught up in it.
Yeah.
But I guess if most of our listeners are younger, in their, I don't know, teens and 20s, I mean, I'm 36, so I've, I don't know, lived 20 years more than them now. And just know that at least with my 20 years of extra life, never, like the good things that you're just really holding on to right now, just think about what if somebody took it away? Like, how you're going to be humble. And when things are going bad, it's okay, man. It might be a month, might be a year. If you stick to the path, I haven't seen a case where it never got better.
Yeah, it's like the Stoic philosophy almost. Read Stoicism much?
Haven't read
Marcus
that book,
Aurelius.
Yeah.
It's like he was the emperor of Rome.
Yeah.
Like he was the most powerful man in human history, basically.
I got to read his philosophy, by the way.
His book in it is like, you're nothing. You're just a man or whatever. You're just a man, yeah. In his journal, which is pretty funny. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, guys. Hope you learned something new and get out there and make some active change.